So hello everybody and welcome to the first episode in our four-part series where we will be talking about the Azure Health Bot. Today is our first episode. My name is Einat Grudai-Delovich. I'm a program manager on the Microsoft Health and Life Sciences organization. With me today we have Trisha and Rusha. I will let them introduce themselves. Rusha, you want to go ahead?
Sure. Hello, everyone. I'm Rucha Yagnik. I am a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador. I'm an incoming computer science graduate student at the University of Southern California. Thank you for joining in, and I welcome you all along with Trisha and Inat. Over to you, Trisha.
Hello everyone, I'm Didrisha Shaha. I'm also a Gold Microsoft Learn Student Ambassador, and I'm currently in my third year at Manipal Institute of Technology, and I'm studying information technology. So hope you guys enjoy this session. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you both. So we are really excited to kick off this session, and thank you everybody for joining. So today we will do a short introduction to the Azure Health Bot. We'll actually build together with you your first Azure Health Bot. In next week's episode, we will talk about how to add some built-in scenarios and configure them. In session number 3, we'll actually talk about some advanced configurations that you can do with the Azure Health Bot. And in our last episode on August 23rd, we'll talk about how the Azure Health Bot is being used with our customers. So I invite you to join all the sessions and stay tuned with us. We are doing a live recording. Feel free to type in any comment or any questions you may have in the chat. We'll try to answer them as we go. So I really encourage everybody to just question anything you may want to ask. We are actually going through the MS Learn modules. So you can find all of this learning path online. You can go to aka.ms/learn and look for the Azure Health Bot training. You can do a complete interactive training with some videos and exercises, and you actually get a badge when you complete these modules. So I encourage you to get the badges, post them on LinkedIn, tag us if you would like. We'll be really happy to see that. So we'll start with our first part today. What we'll do today is actually learn some basics of the Azure Health Bot, understand how it works. We'll learn about some sample scenarios where you may want to use the Azure Health Bot, and we will create together our first Azure Health Bot instance. So the Azure Health Bot is an Azure service that actually empowers health organizations to build and deploy their own AI-powered virtual health assistants. It comes with built-in medical intelligence, which comprises with natural language capabilities and more. It's very customizable. You can extend it to a range of platforms. We'll learn about that in our later episodes. And of course, it adheres to all the Azure security, privacy, and compliance regulations that are required, and especially for the medical field. So Azure HealthBot comes with built-in medical intelligence, content, and knowledge from trusted industry sources. This includes built-in language understanding models that actually incorporate medical and clinical terminology. And the bot can follow conversational context even outside of expected flow. It also includes templates for industry-specific use cases, and we'll learn about those a bit in our next chapter. It includes built-in medical protocols, such as a symptom checker and other industry standard assessments. Azure HealthBot has the intelligence to know when it can hand off to a human and actually integrate some clinical context into that conversation. So for example, if you have a patient that's going through a conversation with the HealthBot and is not really happy with the answers, you can actually configure the HealthBot to know when to ask the customer if they should be handed off, or even to understand some of its sentiments and integrate that into a handoff to a contact center, to a clinician. So as we've said, Azure Health Bot allows organizations to customize and build on its out-of-the-box functionality, so you can address a variety of use cases. You can use it to extend specific processes or workflows your organization may have. You can integrate it with some backend systems such as EMR or EHR systems. And of course, it supports a multitude of channels to connect to it. So you can actually set it up to connect via WhatsApp, via Teams, Facebook, or a web chat that's integrated into your organization's portal. And we'll also show some examples of this later on in the next episodes. So Azure Health Bot adheres to all major medical and data compliance and regulatory requirements. It helps to protect your data according to standards and regulations, such as HIPAA, ISO, CSA, GDPR, and more. You can go online and find everything about this that's required as well. So we are going to do a short knowledge check. I encourage everybody to help us answer. Go online and answer along with us. We'll be really happy to see your answers. So Rusha, I'm going to ask you, which of the following statements is not true about the Azure Health Bot? A, it offers an extensive management portal. B, it meets regulatory requirements of the healthcare industry. Or C, it does not allow handoff to humans when a negative sentiment is detected. What would you say the answer is?
Well, this is a nice question. Let me try. So, for the option A, I think in Interactions tab, you can configure built-in scenarios that interact with the end user. So, which means that it offers extensible management portal, and that is what HealthBot offers. So, it's not the correct answer for this question. For option B, the information handled by each instance of the HealthBot is privacy protected to HIPAA standards and secure to the highest standards of privacy and security. So again, that doesn't suit the question. We're left with option number 3, which says that it doesn't allow handoff to humans. Well, it does. So that would be the correct answer. So how about that, Inat?
Okay, well, I'm just going to have a look at what our audience out there has answered. And I see that most people did agree with you for C. We do have a couple of answers that actually said B. So I just want to go back and reiterate that the Azure Health Bot does meet all regulatory requirements. So definitely B is not true. And I agree with you. And that's the correct answer, C. So it is not true to say that you cannot hand off to humans. This is actually one of the capabilities, set up and hand off to a clinician or to a call center or whatever your organization may have. So thank you, Rusha, and thank you, the audience, for joining in on that. So Rusha, I'd like, if you can, to give us some examples, scenarios where you would want to use the Azure Health Bot. I'd love for some detail on that.
Sure. Well, there are a lot of scenarios in which one can really use HealthBot. So to determine if the HealthBot is for you, let's look at some scenarios that you can use. So HealthBot contains built-in scenarios which are like following. So the first one is triage or symptom checker, which is based on built-in medical protocols. Let's say, for example, I describe a symptom. Maybe I'm going through a headache or a dry cough, or like I just type in that I have a headache. Now, this means that the user, who is me, I'm describing a symptom to the HealthBot instance. Now, the bot helps the user to understand the symptom and suggests how to react. Another one is general information about conditions, symptoms, causes, and complication. For example, if you want some information about diabetes, or let's say you want to know what are the causes of malaria, or even you want the bot to tell you what are the complications of arthritis. In such case, the HealthBot instance, which is loaded with medical content, can provide you the information of medical conditions, symptoms, causes, and its complications. The third one we have is find the doctor type. Let's say I want to know which doctor can treat diabetes. So in this case, the HealthBot instance can recommend the appropriate type of doctor to treat the illness. Well, these are not the all options we have. You can really customize the HealthBot scenarios in every way you want to. For examples, the customers typically build an extensions by using the scenario altering elements, the examples of which can be health plan inquiries. So you can customize your HealthBot instance to access plan details and also the pricing and benefits of the health plans. Or you can also go for finding the providers. For example, you want to search doctors by specialty, in network status, and other specifications. The other thing could be you can build your HealthBot to schedule your doctor appointments or your appointments with your dentist or any other specialty, which is again a very useful and a handy thing to do. So these are some of the examples in which you can use the HealthBot.
Thank you. That sounds great. So actually, just thinking about it, our audience can actually go home today at the end of the show because everybody will actually have set up an Azure Health Bot, and they can start to use some of the built-in functionalities. So I encourage you all to even go afterwards to your newly built Health Bot and actually try to do a symptom checker. Use it on your kids. Ask them to describe your symptoms and get some advice on how you should react. This can actually be used in your daily setting at home. So if your kid has a fever and you'd like to see how to react, should you call the doctor? And you stay at home, feel free to just kind of test that out on the Azure Health Bots. So thank you, Rusha, for that. So let's do our first exercise together with the audience. Rusha, would you like to help the audience create their first HealthBot instance?
Sure, I would love to do that. Let's do it together.
Great. Get ready, everybody, to do some hands-on work. This is not just sitting and watching.
Yeah. So first things first, we go to azure.microsoft.com website, and in here you log into your account and go to Azure portal. So it looks something like this. So when you're on the home page of your Microsoft Azure portal, in the global search, we would look for the Health Bot, and under which we would select Azure Health Bot. So now when you have Azure Health Bot screen open, we go to create, just because we want to create the very first instance of our Health Bot. Now in this wizard, we would fill in all the required details to create the very first instance. So first is the subscription. In case you're a student, you can go for a free Azure subscription. Next thing is the resource group. Now, the resource group is a collection of resources in which all the resources have the same life cycles, permissions, and policies. So if you already have one, you can select it, or you can just click the existing one, or create a new one if you would like to. The next thing is that you name the instance of your health bot. So I would like to call it my health bot. And once everything is given in, I would select review plus create. And then we click on create, which begins the initialization and deployment of our health bot. So you would see that the deployment is in progress, and you would have to wait here for a minute or so just to get it deployed. Now, once it's done, you would see a screen like this, which says that your deployment is complete, which means that now we can access our health bot. So for that, we need to select go to resource option. By going there, you would see the details of your HealthBot instance, and we have a link on the right-hand side, which leads us to the management portal of our HealthBot. And yeah, that is where we can actually start building our own HealthBot and customizing it in a way we like. So there you go. We are on our HealthBot panel. So how interesting and easy it was. How do you think about it, Inat?
Great, looks really easy. So I'm hoping right now everybody already has deployed their first Azure Health Bot. Leave that open on your screen. We will go back and use that later on to do some more configurations. And great, congratulations. So easy to do, right? In just a few clicks, you have a running Azure Health Bot instance. So we are going to do another knowledge check. I encourage everybody to go back to your chat and test your knowledge together with us. So, Rusha, I'm going to ask you again.
All right.
Is it possible for a HealthBot instance to be integrated within an organization's existing systems? What do you think? Is it yes? Is it B, yes, but functional problems may occur? Or is it a no answer?
So there's one explanation to this whole question that HealthBot instance can be integrated with the organization's existing system. So no is not an answer for it, but option A and B can get a little confusing, but I would say that it's option A, yes, because we do not face any functional difficulties when we have to integrate a HealthBot instance in an organization's existing system. So I would go with option A.
Okay, so let's see the answer. Before that, let's see what our audience is saying. So it looks like there is a consensus for A. Let's see what the right answer is. Although now I see that some people did say yes, but functional problems may occur. Let's see what the right answer is. The right answer is a definite yes. So for anybody who has answered yes, but functional problems will occur, let's just clarify that. So you should not have functional problems. Everything can be integrated. Of course, you need to configure it and you need to test it, but the answer is a definite yes. You can integrate Azure Health Bot to existing systems in your organization. So thank you for that, Rusha. Let's go on to question number 3.
Inath, how about me asking you this question? Would you like to take it up?
Yeah, let's try.
All right, so which built-in scenario is activated when a user types, I have a fever? Is it option A, find a doctor type? Is it option B, general information about conditions, symptoms, causes, complications, and more? Or do you think it's an option C, triage and symptom checker?
Okay, so I definitely think that when I type in I have a fever, it's not going to find a doctor type. We also know that find doctor type, while it is a scenario that you can do, it is not a built-in scenario. It's something that should be customized. And when we're talking about B, general information about conditions, so when I'm typing in I have a fever, I probably expect it to trigger a conversation about my fever as a symptom and to get some guidance on what I should do because I have a fever. So my answer would be C. I would say that this should trigger the built-in triage and symptom checker, where I would expect the Azure Health Bot to actually ask me what my symptoms are and give me a recommendation about what I should do. And I would say C. Let's see what our audience has answered. I wonder if they've answered something similar. So definitely, this looks like we have some mixed answers. I would say it's C. Let's see what the right answer is. So that's right. C, triage and symptom checker. So actually, as I said, I'm encouraging everybody after this session to just test out the triage and symptom checker. It's a really cool feature of the Azure Health Bot. And we will learn some more about it in our next week's episode, where we will actually learn how we can configure some of that scenario and just, the best way to use it. So we've actually completed our first part of the episode today, just the first half. We've learned how to build our first Azure Health Bot instance. We've learned about some of the Azure Health Bot's basic capabilities. And we've also learned that the Azure Health Bot service meets all the required regulatory requirements for protecting medical information. If anybody has some questions, feel free to just type them in the chat. We'll be happy to answer them as we go along or at the end of the episode. I encourage everybody to just ask us questions. So we will move on. Again, we are going through the online modules. This is the online learning path that you can find at aka.ms/learn. You have a few modules that you can go through for learning everything about the Azure Health Bot, from the basics to the more advanced. So feel free to go online and complete those. Today, what we are doing is we're actually going along with the Learn module and doing it together with you. So what we'll be doing in the second part, we will talk about custom scenarios, what they are, how to build them. We'll actually build a custom scenario together and test it out, see how it's working. And this will actually be a deployment of our first Azure Health Bot service. So let's talk a little bit about scenarios. When we talk about scenarios in the Azure Health Bot, we're actually talking about a conversational flow that you pre-program into the Azure Health Bot. So typically when a scenario is triggered within the Azure Health Bot, the user gets a list of a series of questions and answers, and he needs to answer them. And the next question will be based off of the answer. And it just keeps on going a Q&A until the scenario is complete. So when we talk about scenarios, we can kind of separate them to two scenarios. The first is the built-in scenarios. We will learn more about them in the second episode. Built-in scenarios have two kinds of built-in scenarios. The first one is system scenarios. These are actually built in for the super user to help its customers get some more information. So examples are typing help to the Azure Health Bot and actually getting a help menu. Another example is typing in forget me, and then the Azure Health Bot will actually delete all the conversation that the user has had within that conversation flow. Another type of built-in scenario is the medical intelligence scenarios, which we've talked a little bit about. The first one is the symptom checker. So as we've explained, you can type in a symptom to the Azure Health Bot, and he will do a triage of the symptom, check what symptoms you have, give you a recommendation based off of your symptoms on how to go about. Should you go to the urgent care clinic? Can you stay at home and monitor your situation? Another type of medical scenario is medical information. You can actually query the bot for medical information. So I can go and type in, what is diabetes? What is an X-ray exam? And actually get some information back from the Azure Health Bot to explain, what are these examinations? How should I prepare for them? And some additional info that you can find. What we'll talk about today is custom scenarios. Custom scenarios actually allow you to build your own scenario. We have tools within the management portal, which we will learn about today. And these tools can be used to actually create any type of scenario that you would like to create. And then you can integrate that scenario with external data sources in your organization and just create a complete experience for your end user that actually is modified for your own organization. So some examples is building a custom scenario that gives information about your clinic's opening times, about available doctors that work within your clinic, or even connecting that scenario afterwards to a scheduling system where you can go ahead and schedule the appointment directly for the relevant physician that you would want to see. Another option is maybe checking the status of a claim, or maybe even setting up a Q&A of some information that you would like to get from the patient and input into a database in your organization's own data source. So we're actually going to go through and learn about creating a new scenario. Detricia, can you help our audience to go along and actually create this new scenario?
Sure, we'll take the audience through the demo together. So we have a demo here, and I'll start from the resource group. So I'll open the resource that I've created for the HealthBot, and I'll open the management portal. So here we'll be able to see all the bots that we have created. And as you can see, I already have a bot here. To create a new one, I'll click on create, and then I'll enter a name for my bot. And you can add a description, but it is not compulsory, but it will help you to understand in future. So I'll add a scenario ID, which is a unique ID that is specific to only our bot. So then we'll add a returning message, which will be displayed when the user opens the bot. And you can turn the interrupting scenario on or off. I'll just switch it off for now. And then I'll go ahead and create the bot. So as you can see, this is the loading screen, and it will take a little bit of time for the bot to get started. And once it is started, we can see that this is the designer window. And here we'll actually create the custom scenario. So first, I'll just go ahead and drag a prompt block onto my designer window, and I'll name this prompt greetings, since this will specify how the bot is going to greet a user. And you can add anything here like, hello, how are you? Or hello, how can I help you? Since the bot is asking the user. So I'll just make it, how can I help you? And then we have to add a variable name also. And this variable name will actually help us identify later, and it should be something specific so that we can understand actually what we are trying to do. And then we have made the variable type as choices because the user will be choosing from various choices. And we have to also specify all the options that will appear to the user to choose from. So I have added the choices array, and I'll keep this thing as button, but you can choose out of many options. And here I have my prompt ready. So the next thing I want to do is use a branch block to help the user decide between what to do, and then the bot will go ahead. So the code for this is scenario.help.index, and I will equate this to 0. So in HealthBot, we have to use 3 equal tos because it's using JavaScript. And now I'll connect the prompt block to the branch. Okay, so now the thing I'm going to do is build, if the user selects services, so the first thing I have to do for this is again create a prompt block, and I'll name the services, and I'll display text as entering into services. And the variable type for this will also be choice, since in services also the user will be given a couple of choices. So I'll make it choice and then add the choices array and display all the various services that the user can choose from. So for example, emergency and trauma, OPD, and pharmacy. I just type that in. I'll keep this as button, and then I'll create the block. So now I'll connect the yes part of the branch to this prompt block. And now what I have to use is a switch case scenario, because it's not a 2-case option. There will be multiple cases of the services to choose from. And in that scenario, we have to use a switch case block so that the user can choose from multiple options given to them. So I'll add the variable name here, and then I'll create the block. So here I'm adding all the cases that I had specified before in the prompt. Okay, and now I'll set, okay, now I'll connect the services prompt to this block. And next thing I'm going to do is, what statement should the bot display when the user clicks on a particular option? So I'll create statements for each and every case. So I'm creating this for emergency and trauma, and you can add any details to it as you want for that particular case. And make sure that you add this statement to the correct option of the switch case block. Otherwise, it may go wrong. So I'll create statements for all the options. So once I have done that, I also need to create a default block. Since in a switch case program, if none of the cases are selected, the bot will display the default block. So once I have created the default statement, the yes part of the bot for the branch will be done. Next, we will move on to departments and more info. And for that, we need to use another branch, since there are 2 options, whereas for each branch, we can either have no or yes. So we'll have to use another branch for adding department and more info. So I'll name this as department, and I'll again add this same program here, but just I'll make the value as 1. So I'll click on OK, and here is our departments branch. Now I'll add the no part to this, and I'll create this. I'll follow the same exact steps that I did for services and create the department scenario. So I have prompt for departments, then I'll create a switch case block. I'll add all the cases to it and then add statements for each of the cases. I'll also add a default block to it as we did for the services. And there we have it, the default, the departments part is done. The last thing we need to do is create the more entry portion of it. And in more info, I'm just adding a statement. You can add whatever you want since it is 100% customizable. So I'll just add something like, please visit our website or email us. And I'll just click on OK. And there we have it. A custom scenario is ready. So this is the designer view, but we can always scroll down and we have the code view as well. And here we can display all the JSON format of the bot that we just created. It does the exact same function, and a user and a person creating the bot can view it in any format they want. So now I will save and run the bot. And in the web chat v4 portion, you can see the bot is running. So yeah, what do I want to do? I want to visit services. So the bot has gotten the prompt, and now I've clicked on pharmacy. And there you see it. This is the exact statement that I had entered in the switch case block for the pharmacy. And so this is our demo for just a custom scenario, but you can customize your bot in infinite different ways according to whatever scenario you're trying to build. So happy building.
Great. So let's show our audience actually a quick the actual demo. I don't know. We can see on my screen. Can everybody see my screen now? Because I do have actually the Azure Health Bot that we built. Why don't we kind of show them how it works? Do you want to do that together, Patricia? So this would be how the final HealthBot instance should look on their screens, right? And I'm just going to go ahead and test it out on this web chat here, and I'm going to do a run. So let's see how it runs. So this is actually what you inputted before as a greeting, right? Hello, how can I help you? And what should I choose? Do I want to see services, departments, or more info? What do you say?
Services.
Services.
Yeah.
Okay. So now it actually writes in what we typed in, right? Entering into services.
Yeah.
And let's choose a service that we want to see. And that's going to be, I don't know, OPD. And then it actually gives us back the information that we inputted into that. So that's please visit during 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. So just showing everybody how they can actually test it out in this web chat, and very cool how this HealthBot is actually
also
looking.
it is highlighting exactly where the bot is performing its task. So I think it makes it very user friendly to understand, because if there is any mistake with the bot, we can exactly understand at which point the bot is
we
having
can actually
a
go through the messages and see the troubleshooting. Great, thank you for that. Let's continue with our slides. I'm just going to go back to the slideshow. And just one moment, sorry about that. So actually, it's just so easy to build Azure Health Bot, right? Is this your experience as well, Rusha and Patricia? That it's
Yes, it took like 5 to 10 minutes to create a custom scenario, as we saw in the demo. So it was very fast, and I didn't expect to have a HealthBot ready in that little bit of time.
Great.
I agree with you, Vitrisha. It was easy for me as well. And since creating the first instance is so easy, it makes the experience, really exciting to just keep improving the HealthBot with all the creativity we can add to it.
Great. So that's good to hear. Happy to hear that. I hope that's the same experience our audience had. And let's go back to the slides, and just maybe Patricia, you can just take us through some more elements that the Azure Health Bot allows in its custom scenarios.
Sure.
So
I think our audience is excited to find out.
One moment, I'm not sure if the audience can actually see our slides right now. I'm just going to try and reshare that. This is part of the excitement of going live, right? We have some challenges always. And let's see if it will work now.
Yeah.
So can everybody see my slides? Great, we're back. So the Tricia, as I said, maybe we can go through some of the basic elements just to see, if there are some additional ones that we did not discuss in the demo.
So from sending prompt messages to getting answers from the user to a specific question, interaction with the users is a mandatory functionality in any chatbot conversation. And to enable this, we have multiple conversational elements. And we have already seen how prompt and statement work. So prompt displays a statement, and then it also takes in input from the user and directs them to what they actually want to do. The yes and no element allows the user to choose from two options, that is yes and no, and that's it. The statement only displays the text that we have entered, and it does not take any input from the user.
Let's talk
So
a little
next
bit
we
about
have
data flow. Yeah, sorry.
So here we have branch, and earlier we have already used branch to make a split decision between two directions. So we had a yes side and a no side, and then the bot performs as the user wants it to. Next, we have the switch block, and this block actually helps the user choose from multiple cases, and you can create as many cases as you want, and it does not just limit you to two cases like branch. Then we have begin, and what begin does it helps us to pause an ongoing scenario and then run another scenario, and then it stays paused till the user wants it, and then we can go back to the previous scenario that was running. Replace is when you just replace it with another scenario, and end is when you just don't want it to run again, you just want it to stop then and there, and that is it.
Okay, and I think we will be showing some examples of using this in one of our later episodes, because we do talk about interrupting scenarios, and that's a very useful step in those kind of scenarios.
Yeah. So now we have data connections, and data connections actually help us to integrate external data resources, and we can use the data connection object, which allows us to make HTTPS calls to the API providers or any API endpoints that we have of our own. So next is the global variable, and by using the global variable element, we can set and get variables to use throughout our scenarios. And variables that are set in this way, they can use the $sign, the @ sign, and the and sign and notations, and they maintain their context. So they're persistent and available in all scenarios for all the users. The next is action, and we use actions to take control of the bot framework APIs so that we can modify and extend our bot's functionality. So next we have language understanding, and this is very important because the user will not always know what exactly to ask the bot to get a particular answer. So that is where language understanding comes in. So we can set HTTPS calls to the language understanding service, and interactions with the LUIs are automatically enforced with a no storage policy. And we can have great conversations, and we won't feel like we're talking to a bot or giving commands to it because of Louis. And this will be
We'll
explained.
actually learn about this in the next week's module. So tune in. This is a really important part of the Azure Health Bot, the LUIS language understanding service for Azure that can actually integrate with Azure Health Bot.
Yeah. So next we have the wait element, and we can use the wait element to pause and suspend a scenario execution. So that is it. We have the advanced functionality stated here.
Thank you. So now our audience can actually build their own custom scenarios. And if you have any questions, if you're going along and building and you run into some difficulties, so please write it in the chat. I'll be able to see it on here. We can answer your questions as we go along. So please feel free to ask any question. And now I'm asking everybody to join us for another knowledge check. So, Tricia, what do you think? Which of the following would you use to display text and take input from the user within the Azure Health Bot custom scenario.
Okay, so when we were creating the demo, I think we saw that block is what we call every component. So block is a general word that we use for all the components that we created, like prompt, statement, and switch case. So we can't just say that we are going to use block. Whereas statement we use to just display a text and not take any user input. So prompt is what gives displays a text and then asks input from the user. So yeah, I'll be using prompt for this.
You say a prompt. Great. I'd love to see what our audience is saying. So I hope everybody is putting in some answers. And then let's see what the correct answer is. The correct answer is a prompt. That's correct. So I hope everybody's listening to our demo and actually able to answer this correctly. And let's go to another question. So if you wanted to use a two-way decision split, which element would you use? Is it A, yes, no prompt? Is it B, branch? Or is it C, switch? What do you think would be the right one to use? And this is a bit of a tricky question, I think.
Yes. So for the first one, this is the yes and no prompt, and the function of this is to just allow the user to select one of the two options, that is yes and no, and then it is it. It does not have a decision split. So then we move on to switch, and as we have seen for switch, we have multiple cases. So it can be 3, 4, and so on. In branch, we have split. Have to use.
Okay, so we're actually saying that the correct answer would be probably B, branch, although it is a little bit tricky with the yes or no prompts, right? Where that may be confusing for some of our audience. Let's see what they've answered. So I think most people have answered correctly, so I'm glad to see they're listening along. But I do see some yes, no prompt answers. So in this case, I think we should just explain again. So yes, no only allows you to input yes or no. A branch allows you to actually put in a decision and any answer you would want to use. So really the correct answer is indeed B, branch. So yay for everybody that answered correctly. Seen in our second part today is how to create an Azure Health Bot service with our first custom scenario. We've learned how to use the canvas, how to drag and drop blocks and use all the elements or some of the elements that are available within the Azure Health Bot portal. And we've seen how you can kind of connect them together to a flow. And we've also shown how you can see below, within the box of the management portal, you can go along and see step by step how it's being calculated, what the conversation is showing, and that's a really good troubleshooting tool. So actually, anybody can go back after this session to their Azure Health Bot instance and just create your own custom scenario. And if you have any questions, you run into trouble, just join us next week, ask the questions, or even contact us directly on LinkedIn or however you feel comfortable contacting us. I'd really love to see if we have any questions that I can answer. If anybody has additional questions they would want to ask, as I said, feel free to ask at any point. We're always here to help answer. And we have finished today's session, which is about just how to build your first Azure Health Bot. Again, next week, we're going to learn about the really important part of language understanding. And then in week number 3, we're going to learn about some additional enhancements. And as I said, August 23rd, we're going to showcase how our Azure Health Bot is being used. So we do have some questions that we want to go ahead and answer. And Rusha, do you want to maybe discuss something? Go ahead and then.
Yeah, so there's a question in the audience chat. So can I go ahead and ask you?
Yeah, let's go through them and see what we can answer.
So our audience wants to know the difference between the Q&A and the Azure Health Bot.
Okay, So that's a good question. What's the difference between Q&A and the Azure Health Bot? So Q&A is actually a cognitive service. And this cognitive service allows you to build a knowledge base of questions and answers. The Azure Health Bot actually can connect to the Q&A knowledge base and allow your Azure Health Bot instance to actually take questions and answers from this service. So the Q&A on its own is just like a repository of questions and answers, and it doesn't actually allow the whole conversational flow. So I hope that's clear, Rusha. Let me know if you think that's clear enough. And actually,
I agree with you, Anat. Yeah.
And you know, I think that we may actually be able to show it in one of our later modules, but definitely if you go to aka.ms/learn, you will see a whole learning path that incorporates some examples of the Q&A service. I also see an interesting question. What's the difference between PVA and Azure Health Bot? So this is a good question. PVA is personal virtual assistant. It's actually also a service that Microsoft has. This is a bit different. PVA is not only for medical instances. Okay, PVA, it's a great service and you can use it for many different things, but it has different capabilities. The Azure Health Bot has the differentiating factor is the built-in medical intelligence, the ability to use language understanding. And you'll find that this is a little bit different than PVA. So really, I encourage you, you know, to if you're using PVA today, you can try to see if the Azure Health Bot gives you additional capabilities or different capabilities, and kind of see what works best for you, because it's just two different products for two different use cases. Another question we have. Does the Azure Health Bot use the Microsoft Bot framework? So I do. It definitely is relying on its bot framework. This is another service that we have in Azure. The Azure Health Bot is of course, it's a product. It's a different product than the bot framework, and it is has some underlying components that are maybe shared, but it's a different product. So we do have some integrations. We work closely with the bot framework group when we're producing the Azure Health Bot, when we're developing it, but it's a different product. But it definitely does use some of the underlying framework. And can you integrate this with the bot framework composer? So this is something that I can't answer offhand because it has some additional things that we would need to see exactly how you want to integrate. It can't be integrated directly with the bot framework composer. This actually, maybe later on in the roadmap, it will be available. At this point, you can just integrate it with some of the bot framework's abilities. One interesting thing that you can do, you can actually create bots with the bot framework and actually use different skills that can be called from within the Azure Health Bot. So you can actually integrate these bots together with each other, and you can learn about that online as well. We have some more questions. I see. Let's go through them.
I think it's a very interesting question to understand the flexibility of the bot. That what channels can this be used in? Is it Microsoft Teams? Is it Skype, Direct Line, or Telegram?
So we do support a bunch of different channels, and we are trying to update this as we go along as well and add new channels. Currently, you can use it, as I said, with a web chat, and you can integrate this web chat into any portal. You can use it with Skype. You can definitely use it with Teams, highly recommended. You can use it with a direct line, so that can be integrated as well with other systems. And actually, we can integrate with many different channels where bot framework integrates, but some of this may require talking to us as the product group and seeing how we can help you to integrate it. So we do have some additional functionalities, and all of it you can find online in the documentation for the Azure Health Bot. Feel free to go on there and see exactly what can be integrated.
I'm really glad about the questions that those are coming up. they really make sense and very informational. So, Inath, would you like to take up one more question that I see on the chat?
Sure. The questions are great. I love them. I see everybody's listening and really being involved. So happy to hear all these questions. So please ask me. Go ahead.
So the question is that is this extensible with code like you can do with the Microsoft Bot Framework Composer?
Okay, so honestly, I'm not completely familiar with everything that you can do in the Microsoft Bot Framework Composer because this is not a product I work with on a daily basis. But you can extend a lot of the Azure Health Bot capabilities with some coding. The composer, the composer that we have in the portal that we've seen before, has a lot of capabilities where you can actually put in some coding in some of those blocks. And extend it as well. So the answer is yes, but you'd have to see exactly what functionality you're trying to do. But the answer is definitely yes. This is really extensible. The point is that it can be used by users who don't have any experience with code, so they can do no code or low code Azure Health Bot. But if you have somebody who has a high experience with coding, then they can definitely add on and do some more extensive really cool things and capabilities. So I really hope that answers your question. And if we have any more questions, I'm not sure if anybody wants to ask any more. I'm really happy to hear all of them. Again, feel free. So feel free to always, kind of approach us. I see we have one more question about using microservices. So it seems that somebody is asking a lot of questions about the underlying framework. I'm not sure I'll be able to answer it on this episode because these are discussions that we can have offline. I really encourage you to contact me directly, and we can definitely talk about the underlying framework and how, if you want to integrate it within your product. We are using microservices. Again, the bot framework is an underlying framework. So just feel free to contact me. We can take this offline and do a whole engineering discussion about what we're using. So thank you, everybody. I think that's really, really great. I had a lot of fun on this first episode. I really hope everybody will join us back. Again, all we did today, we built our first Azure Health Bot instance. It was great. We learned how to do custom scenarios. Next week, we're going to learn how to enhance that. We're going to learn about language understanding. If you're not familiar with it, LUIS is the Azure Language Understanding Service, which we can incorporate into the Azure Health Bot. We'll learn about it next week. We'll learn about the built-in scenarios and how to configure them. So that's a really, really cool episode that we'll have next week. And then we'll learn some additional functionalities. And August 23rd, we're actually going to have some of our field, actual people who work with the customers. They're going to be showcasing real live customers and how they use the Azure Health Bot. So I encourage everybody to keep joining us in. And don't forget to join us weekly on Learn TV. This is the route, aka.ms Learn Live. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. Rusha and Patricia, it's been a pleasure. I really had fun. I hope you guys enjoyed it as well.
Definitely.
Yes,
Thanks
I
for
enjoyed
having
it.
us. Yeah.
So
I
thank
hope
you.
the audience enjoyed it as much as we did.
Yeah, I hope so. And I hope they'll contact us. I'm waiting to see some badges on LinkedIn for the Azure Health Bot. So thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you
Thank
next
you.
week,
Bye.
everyone. Bye.
Bye.